Okay, this is ready to go. If we wanted to post this to our favorite machine, I already have it on ShopBot here. We could either right-click and post the individual operations themselves, or since we're doing this with the same bit, we could select them both, right-click somewhere else and post, or click on the setup and post the setup as its own thing. A quick note on using different bits. We use the same bit on this 3D operation for both the roughing and the finishing because it's a small part, and we can afford to use a small 1/4" bit to do the roughing. Clearly, and this is a lot of lines already in a small object, if your model gets bigger in any meaningful sense, which I would say getting about more than 18 inches square, you're going to want to use a larger bit to do the roughing, or else using a 50% step over, it's just going to take forever to do it with your tiny 1/4" bit. So what does it mean? But you're still going to want to do the finishing with a small bit in case you want to get that level of detail. There are nuances to the size of bit that you want to use to finish. It doesn't always make sense to use the smallest bit to get the most detail. Sometimes, slightly counterintuitively, it's better to use a larger ball bit to get smoothness, and it'll still preserve the details that you want. That's a matter for you to encounter in your different CNC adventures as you go. But what's important to talk about right away is that if you use a larger bit to do your roughing and a smaller bit to do your finishing, that is absolutely fine. But you have to remember that there are certain situations in which your roughing will, because of the diameter of the bit, not be able to squeeze into certain areas, and it'll leave material behind that your finishing with a smaller bit will then try to take out all at once because it hasn't been touched yet. It's not an issue when it's the same size bit because it can get into all the same cracks. Unfortunately, the prototypical model of this type that I'm describing is a site model with buildings on it. There is no better type of geometry to leave tiny little cracks in between things than a 1 to several thousand model of a city with lots of little buildings with little gaps in between them. You want to do the roughing with a big bit, but you want to do the finishing with a little one to get detail. These files, you have to be very careful about what you are roughing and then finishing and leaving behind. So you have to take time to look at those situations in which you have gaps of less than, say, a 1/2 inch, but more than a 1/4 inch.